Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. It's May 4th, 2024. We're going to review gold and precious metals today. This is my first post in a while. I will try to get to a monthly cadence. Just very busy. If you're finding value in this, though, please like and share. I just want to make sure that everyone is clear on where we are potentially in the cycle. So I'm going to make this video because you can obviously share only about so much through tweets. But if you're not following on Twitter, definitely take a look there because I do share regular updates there just so that people know high level what I'm thinking. So again, reminder, this was your last 8 year this was your last 8 year cycle low before the most recent one. So 2015, and then you had this long 8 year cycle, right? Lasted 83 months. The top came on month 56. Then we started a new 8 year cycle in late 2022, and we are on what month is that? Okay, so this is month 20 here in May, which just started. And we so far have a top on month 19. I don't think that's going to last. So remember, the last 8 year cycle rallied for 56 months. This is on day 20 right now. Or excuse me, month 20. And so we would expect a lot more upside from here. I think we just need patience. We're going to drill down and see how we're looking on the weekly cycle and daily cycle. But just keep that in mind. But also keep in mind, look at this like long period of consolidation for this 8 year cycle start. Whereas this one, we've actually made some good progress. Like, what are we up? How much are we up already here? Let's see. So we've rallied, whoa, wow, 50% already. So let's think about that. What was the rally from the last 8 year cycle to the peak? 97%. It doesn't mean we have to see the same percentage rally, obviously. Just gives you kind of an order of magnitude. So this has been a nice steep rally. If you somehow bought the Pico bottom, obviously, and you sold the Pico top, you'd be up 49%, which is great. And obviously, this rally was even longer, or this was even more. Let's see, what was that in terms of, again, Pico bottom? Right, that was like 170%. And this was a monster of a rally. That was a big one, 300%. So still more upside to come. And if we are in a weekly cycle decline, that's going to present a really nice buying opportunity. The only thing that we know for sure is that we are declining into a daily cycle. Now, it remains to be seen if that's going to become a weekly cycle low as well. But this has been a very long rally of 41 days. So from here all the way up to this top right here we got on, what day was that? April 12th. Since then, we consolidated for 4 or 5 days. Then we had this big down day, more consolidation. We tried to break down. So this right now has the appearance of a sort of bear flag, sort of testing this low. We're going to have to see how that plays out. But clearly, we haven't made a daily cycle low just yet, right? Like obviously, what we're going to want to see is a move like that. So we're going to want to see something like this to confirm that we're leaving a daily cycle low behind here. And more importantly, in terms of the weekly cycle, we have a top on week 8, which was that April 12th. That big red candle on the daily is causing this really ugly shooter candle on the weekly. And notice we just closed below that low, didn't we? So we're just now confirming a swing high, aren't we? Yeah. So as you remember, to form a swing high, we have to close below the low of the candle that marks the high. So this candle marks the high, and the low of this candle is 2303. And so we have closed just below that this week. We did not close below that these previous 2 weeks. So it's very possible we're in a weekly cycle decline, but we've had these short little weekly cycles as well, where like this one was 14 weeks, this one was 17 weeks, this other one was 17 weeks. So actually, if you go back to basically the middle of 2022, gold has been in these like short weekly cycles. So there was a 15-week cycle, and that was actually the one that was your 8-year cycle low right there. And then the first cycle rallying out of that was 17 weeks. Topped on week 13, bottomed on week 17. Then the next cycle was about 17 weeks. Now here you can quibble and just say, wait, this whole thing is one cycle, right? So instead of 17 and 14, it's one, what is that, 31-week cycle, which probably makes more sense. But you could also kind of think of it as those are half cycle lows. It's really all the same thing, which is to say we could easily bottom on like week 14 or 15. So what is this? This is week 9, 10, 11. So next week starts week 12. So you could see a world where we get like a couple more weeks down, maybe 3 weeks down, and then we actually bottom, and then we start another weekly cycle rally, or it's a half cycle. It's kind of the same thing. But you probably are going to want to see us close below the 10-week moving average, where we're not even close there. Like right now, that's down here around 2250. So I expect we'll probably see some more downside before we get that clear buy signal. So that's your weekly and daily. So that's gold. Let's move on to the miners now. Everything is on a slightly different cycle right now, which does make things a little bit more complicated, but it keeps things interesting, right? So for miners, if we think about where we are in the weekly cycle, they topped out on week 6, whereas gold topped out on week 8. So they only managed to rally for 6 weeks. And you can see we've been consolidating, so it's week 7, 8, 9. So we're going to be starting week 10 next week. The line that you really want to stay above for miners is right around 33, 3302, call it 33 even. Below that, you're forming a weekly swing high, and you're starting a weekly downtrend, which the odds are that that's where we're headed, right? So that's the miners really quick. Let's look at GDX versus GLD. That gives us a sense of how the miners are performing versus gold. Always an interesting signal. So for this one, we rallied for longer than GDX rallied in and of itself, which is really interesting. So this topped out on week 8, just like gold so far, right? So that's your weekly cycle. And if you think about the bigger picture where we are in the monthly, we actually just made a new low in February. So that is to say, miners underperforming gold, right? So we actually broke below the low that marks the 8-year cycle low, which is a potential false breakdown, right? Look at that. We actually closed below it. And again, this is a ratio chart, not an absolute chart, obviously, but this is an important one that I'm going to be watching, because if we're going to see strength, like if this is a genuine gold bull market, we're going to need to see miners accelerate. And so that also means there's a potential for a massive catch-up trade. I mean, look at that undercut. Very, very interesting. I mean, it tends to undercut pretty massively. I mean, look at that. That was your COVID low, which is to say the miners get trashed. So this ratio goes really low because the miners get trashed. And so in absolute terms, and the same is true like relative to gold. Okay, let's look at silver, which usually has a cycle that's actually kind of similar to miners. So silver, again, saying they're all in like slightly different cycles. Silver actually topped out on the weekly cycle on week 11 so far, and it's had a sharper decline, and it actually kissed the 10-week moving average. Let's see, I think GDX already did as well. So gold is the one that's actually holding up. How is GDX relative to the 10-week? Oh, actually, GDX is appreciably above the 10-week moving average. That's really interesting. So silver underperforming miners in that sense. And similar story for silver as gold. We're looking for a daily cycle low any day now. Question of, is it going to lead to a higher high, or is it going to just continue the weekly cycle decline? Let's look at Dixie really quickly for some nice correlation, because that appears to be breaking down, which is just always just interesting to be aware of if you're watching my gold. So so let's actually look at the weekly cycle first. So for Dixie, we made a high on week 16. So we originally had made a high on week 7. That is just one second. Okay, so we had originally made a high on week 7, which was here. We had a dip. This looked like it was a legit, like the start of a weekly cycle decline, but then we rebounded. We made a higher high on week 16, and then we consolidated a little bit, sort of false breakdown, bounced back, and then really flushed hard. This was a double top. This did not make a new high. So week 16 remains the high. So this is week 18. That said, that's already relatively deep in the weekly cycle. You can see this previous one was 24 weeks, 23, 35. So we could expect 2, 3 weeks down, but doesn't necessarily mean we'll get a really lengthy decline. And bigger picture, the real unknown here for the Dixie is where are we in the 3-year cycle, right? We have a clear low here in July 2023. And the question here, that was month 30, was that an early 3-year cycle high low? If it was, this rally to start has been very feeble. I mean, it hasn't gone anywhere. Look, right? It went up and then gave it back. Now it's coming back up, and it looks like it's on pace to give it right back. So just kind of consolidating in here. So whether this is a new 3-year cycle or part of the end of that previous 3-year cycle, it's unclear, but we're not making much progress either way. And so it could be the start of a bearish 3-year cycle potentially after like an early 3-year cycle. The price action isn't positive is the headline though. So that's the bigger picture. But keep in mind on the daily chart though, we look like we could get a daily cycle low any day now. So that may be your like that may be a nice little bounce before we flush for good into this ICL. So that's the precious metals complex, including Dixie. And I'll just really quickly also mention that the US 10-year yield looks like it just topped on week 17. So it looks like it may be starting a weekly cycle decline after rallying for 17 weeks. And same thing with the 30-year yield. And that means TLT looks like it probably just made a weekly cycle low, right? So nice little swing low close on the weekly. That would give us a ICL on week 26, which is a good timing band when you think of where we've seen previous ICLs. So bonds may be ready to rally in terms of price and decline in terms of yield. So that's the update on precious metals. Thanks for watching.